Moving on over to topic 2, let's talk some games. We kind of alluded to Fallout Shelter with the previous topic. So I wanted to talk about games that kind of hit me out of nowhere, that I kind of fell in love with after either not knowing about them or just not really giving it the time of day to look into anything. And then when I finally jumped into them, just whoosh, sucked me right into it and took over, I guess you could say, what I was playing and what I enjoyed. So we'll start with Fallout Shelter because just nice transition there. But yeah, Fallout Shelter was one I did not expect to get into so much, but that absolutely absorbed all of my attention when I finally jumped into it. I know it started, I believe, as a mobile game, and then I finally tried it. I don't know why, but jumped into it on the PlayStation side of things and just had a great time. You manage the vault, you're building different rooms and resources for energy, for water, for food. And while you're doing this, you're also needing to defend your vault from incoming raiders and mole rats that randomly pop up, and eventually death claws, which are scary as shit. So you're doing this little management sim, but it still has elements of that mobile game thing where it's like, oh, well, this is going to take real life amount of time to build this, or you're going to send some vault dwellers out to try and get to this location to get better resources for you or loot so you can upgrade your folks. That's going to take time for them to go. But I just had a great time with it. It's definitely a slow start with the mobile mechanics of it with the real time, I guess, aspects or iteration in there. It can be a slow start as you're waiting for these things to go, but I feel like once the ball got rolling, the shelter was built up a little bit more. You could really time those things out where it didn't feel like that 6 minutes, hypothetically, then I'm waiting for this resource to be done to click on that room to gather. Those you could spread apart. It didn't feel as bad because there was a lot of things to do, people to manage, resources to gather. What am I building? What's going next? That mechanic of the waiting for the time didn't really affect me as well or as much later on. Definitely in the beginning, it's like, well, I can't do anything else today. Guess I'll sign off. And then you just kind of plug back in when you got the chance. But jumping into that was a blast, and that was one, yeah, I just never expected to play, just because those mobile games, or some mobile games, don't really resonate with me, especially with the time management. I mean, there was that time period with like Facebook gaming when they had that, or I guess it was prior even to Facebook gaming, but like the Farmville stuff, and there was a Marvel game which I really enjoyed. But those resources where you had to wait for it to respawn, I guess Candy Crush is another one you could use as an example with like your lives. If you run out of them, you got to wait X amount of time or do the microtransaction to speed it up. This was one I didn't expect to dive into, and it really had a lot of character to it, and it was goofy and fun, so definitely appreciated my time with that. I can't remember how much time I did put into it overall. I got the platinum for it, but I don't remember over the amount of time put into it. But that was one of those things, like once the platinum was done, I was like, all right, done everything I can here. It was a great time. I really enjoyed it. And still think about it here and there. Just like I said, that art style and the management aspect of it was a lot of fun. So from Fallout Shelter, we'll kind of jump back a little bit in time. I mean, even before really focusing on games media, and I guess before it was even a thing in the internet. But Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I guess more too, really was one of those games that also captured my attention. And this was one I never even had until the remaster came out from Vicarious with the 1 and 2, packaged together. But this was one I remember playing at a lot of friends' houses, relatives' houses, just jumping into it, really enjoying it, and not like having any inclination in the skating world. I know that would lead eventually to, playing more of these, and then American Wasteland, which was absolutely my favorite, and then getting a skateboard thanks to my parents, and then not using it Whoops. Like, from not having any interest or any knowledge of the skateboard games and then jumping into Tony Hawk whenever we could, just doing those 2-minute runs and goofing around was a blast. Definitely was a time sink whenever we were hanging out with friends and stuff like that. Just pure chaos, the short games. I remember the different game modes. Obviously, you had the score attack for the 2 minutes, or you could do, what was it? It was not tag, but maybe it was. But you would do certain tricks on different ramps, rails, walls, whatever aspect of the skate park that was around you, and it would tag it your certain color, so whether it was red or blue, and then you would try at the end of the timer to have more pieces in your color. I remember that was always a lot of fun. So yeah, that was another game that just absorbed my attention. Like I said, not owning it and then fully having the ability to jump into it when they did the remaster, that was just another aspect of it, just whoosh, absorbing all of my attention, playing through it for the first time, being like, oh, I have to collect all these letters or get this certain score or whatever it is. Only getting a taste of that early on to now have it fully at my disposal was just like, oh yeah, this is, give me more of this. And seeing the different characters that there were and the levels. As kids, we only really played with Pro Skater 2, like Hangar was one we loved just because all the Easter eggs of like, oh, you grind on this and the helicopter will actually go through the ceiling and break apart and opens a whole nother section of the map. Like those things were what we had fun with. So Hangar and I believe it was School 2 were probably what we played the most, but the rest we didn't really touch all that often. So to have it here to actually fully explore those things was like, wow, we missed a lot, or rather I did. And then, yeah, just like I mentioned earlier, kind of led into the rest of the series, which I didn't play a lot of the Tony Hawk games. I think American Wasteland, as I said, was probably the one I put the most time into. I didn't play Underground, which I heard was great. I did try, what was it, the Tony Hawk Ride, that like motion controller one with the stand on the skateboard and it's got the sensors on each side. It was fun. Not, didn't really have retention value, but it was a good time while it lasted. Going back and playing a little bit of 3 and 4 was good. Trying to think if there was any other ones. I don't think so, but falling in love with those has, just expanded to other Tony Hawk likes, like more recently, like Hellskate, trying to take the Tony Hawk games and then combine it with the roguelike aspect of like combat. Kind of clicked. Shout out to Ollie Frog Toe Skater, which is amazing. Just taking all of those gameplay mechanics that Tony Hawk did bring to the table and put it in this cute little squishy frog. Definitely looking forward to that. And there was many other skating games along the way, even with Skate bringing something new to the table with how you could do stuff. I remember that was big, obviously, for stream. Well, not obviously, for stream early in the streaming days. But man, those people got competitive. But yeah, Tony Hawk was a good time as well. So let's circle back, or well, I guess from Tony Hawk we'll go forward to like 2015, 2016, Bret living in California all by his lonesome. There was 2 games coming out. There was Battleborn and there was Overwatch. And I had no idea what was going on. It just seemed like a lot of heroes or main characters out there. You were shooting a lot of things and trying to win the fight, win the battle. And it was the battle of these 2. I went on the side of Overwatch, which seems to have won. R.I.P. Battleborn. And it just sunk its teeth into me of having these interesting characters, this cool world around it. And whether it was playing on my own, which I did most of the time, or jumping into team games with Billy, John, and Dio, and other friends along the way, just the chaos of defending different points, trying to escort the car or the train type thing to the end, shouting out what we need, different classes. We got, the different characters, obviously gravitating towards Widowmaker and having a blast with her, and then swapping over to Lucio and skating around with him and doing all this healing. And then eventually, the cast of characters gets expanded with DLC and Ash becomes somebody to jump into with kind of like that mixture of what Widowmaker could do with the range, but also being a little bit more aggressive in there. And just seeing this game blow up was a fun ride. I know recently, over the past couple of years with Overwatch 2, unfortunately, what Blizzard has done with it hasn't been for me. The upgrades were cool, but wasn't enough. And then when they announced the single player stuff was getting the axe, it was like, well, I guess this is it for me with Overwatch. And it's sad because that was one definitely 200, 300, maybe more hours across all the different platforms I did play it on. But I had a great time with it while it lasted, especially once again, those nights just playing with friends. There's a couple streams where I think Billy was over, John was over. We'd have that multiple TV set up, just playing that, just the pure chaos of yelling at each other of whatever was going on in the battlefield and needing certain things or needing help or needing an ultimate or syncing those together or whatever it was. It was a blast for the time it was over those years, and just wish it could have kind of kept its hooks in me a little bit more. I do miss those characters. I haven't looked and seen what characters they've added since Overwatch 2. I think, was it the first 3 I knew about? Kiriko, and there was 2 that were launched with Overwatch 2. I don't think I've checked out anybody else past that point, just because that's when they unfortunately made that decision to focus on the other stuff. I'm curious how the competitive scene is now. I know Overwatch League was doing very well. I'm not sure if that's still around or if that did fold, unfortunately. It's obviously coming up on a 10-year-old game, so to even have somewhat of an audience backing it is impressive. So hopefully that audience is getting what they need out of it and the developers are supporting it well. But for the time I played it, loved it. Quickly, going to jump into the next 2. We got Hades and Neon White. Both of these titles were ones that I was late to the party with, which, not a big surprise. That's often my my MO, my shtick. Hence why the backlog is so huge, and, you know, I'm just behind on everything. But jumping into both of these were instant hooks. Obviously, Hades with the roguelite aspect, Neon White with the kind of time trials. Both game types that I hadn't delved into. I know obviously the roguelike genre seems to be, in the grand scheme of things, relatively new, and it's blown up where there's so many of them now. But that being, I want to say my first one. I can't think of another prior to that. And the Neon White, the speed, like the time trial aspect never resonated with me growing up, just because that frustration of go, do it again, and just feeling like I was taking my head and just bashing it into a wall over and over again. But for some reason, these two clicked, and I think ultimately it came down to, well, one, obviously the gameplay and how it flows together, but I think the characters is what made it stick out here. Hades has a lot of good characters there with Zagreus and his story and, you know, kind of going against his dad, Hades, wow, and figuring out where he belongs and wanting to do something else and meeting all the different gods with the different power-ups along the way. And Neon White with White, wow, and figuring out his history, what happened to him in the real world before he passed, and then dealing with Green. Yeah, they all have creative names in Neon White, I know. And like, why is he such a dickhead and trying to take him down? Absolutely fell in love with both of these games. Both these games I would want to platinum one day, but they have some stuff with them. Hades seems a little bit more attainable just because it's just like have the resources and talk to people seems to be the big gap. Neon White, on the other hand, with the speedrunning aspect, the final part of the puzzle there is like doing all the levels consecutively. And there's different, like, I think there's like 6 different chunks. One of them's literally all the levels. And then other ones I think are like all of White's levels, all of Red's levels, all of Yellow's levels. And I'm like, that's a commitment. Yikes. So, I don't know. You know, it's a pipe dream. But these are games that definitely absolutely love diving into. Hades is one I revisited recently and would love to play again all the way through. Same with Neon White. That is a testament to that game, where they had some problems, at least on the PlayStation side of things, where your save would get wiped. So to show how much I love this game, like, I think even getting, was it to the end? Maybe it was like halfway. Getting halfway through it to have the save wiped and be like, you know what? I enjoy it so much, I'm just going to jump into it. To feel so connected to that game and have so much fun with it, where the loss of progress didn't feel like obviously it sucked, but it wasn't enough to be like, nope, I'm done, I'm not going back to that. I think speaks to the funness of the game, and how much, enjoyment I got out of it. So those two, especially, me just hearing the name here and there, not looking into it, knowing that a lot of people enjoyed Hades, but not giving it the proper chance until later, and the Neon White being the same thing of like, I don't really know what this is, and then finally trying it out and diving into it just based on a name and the name and conversation going on at the time was a blast. I got two more to talk about. Let's talk about Marvel Snap. Another one, shocker, late to the party. Still playing it to this day, season in and season out, probably almost every day, just playing a few games here and there. But Marvel Snap is taken over, and being a mobile game, me not being a mobile gamer, surprised that it resonates so much. Obviously, it's got the Marvel characters in it, which we're a fan of, but doing the matches over and over again, trying different combinations of cards and seeing what abilities work with what. I'm not going to say we're, MLG Pro Marvel Snapper. No, definitely. I see you on X, you crazy people getting thousands upon thousands of power. Calm down. But just having fun with the cards and the decks that we've assembled, and not like the matches are so quick and not effortless, because you do have to think about it from time to time, but so simple to jump into. You get a quick match. Hey, you won. Hey, you lost. You jump right back into it. You can try and change up your strategy, do things that are different, where it doesn't feel like a loss is all that bad. It's not the end of the world. There's so many different mechanics with the different cards. You're going to run into something new every time, whether it's what you're playing, whether it's what your opponent is playing, or even just what the game is bringing to you with the different locations, even locations having different abilities. And the team here is constantly adding new cards over the seasons, and they're also adjusting things over time. So you'll see cards get buffed, you'll see cards get debuffed. They'll do fun little limited time events, like for example with Valentine's Day, if you had both cards of a couple, like I think played together, or maybe it was just even in the deck, like they would get a boost in power, and they had an Avengers versus X-Men. So like if you had so many X-Men on the field, boost in power. Same with Avengers. It's a lot of fun. I don't think every season they do hits. Like right now they are doing a Thunderbolt season. Nah, not for me. But that's the thing with it too. If you want to invest in that battle pass type thing, you can. It's there for you, for the extra content if that calls out to you, and if not, then you can just jump into normal matches or the conquest mode, which is more ranked play, and you could just enjoy yourself there. And then also being able to play against your friends is a blast. So yeah, I never expected to dive into that fully, but when I finally did, I was like, oh, okay, I get this. It's got the Pokemon elements of the card collecting. It's got the strategy elements behind it with figuring out all the different cards, and just, it scratches that itch of seeing all these different artists put their heart and soul into the cards, and like, oh, I'm going to collect this guy or this person or this artist and do this and do that. It just scratches that itch of the collector aspect that we all have, or at least has arisen recently with the resurgence of Pokemon and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I can do this without having binders upon binders upon binders of stuff. It's fun. And last but not least, it'll be a short one because we have talked about it quite a bit, but one I never thought would take so much of my attention. And granted, it's been ebbs and flows. It hasn't always been on the forefront of things we're playing, but it's Fortnite. Didn't think Fortnite would be this huge thing that especially Lady and I would play together for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours together. But it's something that's definitely taken over and given us a bonding experience to play together. Whether it's just the two of us, whether it's other friends, even solo from time to time, whether it was the TwitchCon in 2017 or streams, whatever aspect it is, Fortnite has just become this fun that we can jump into from here and there, play some matches, do decently well, and have some fun unlocking things and chasing after challenges. When it seemed originally when this game was like, nah, that's silly, that's just for kids or goofy or whatever it is. So to still jump into it many years later, once again, season after season, and see what they have available for us, whether it's the crossover stuff or the original stuff in terms of unlocks for characters and the map and events that they have. It's been a blast. Like I said, it hasn't always been like 100% gung-ho about it. There's definitely been ebbs and flows, but I will say when we jump into it, it seems to always be a blast, and especially when we hit those big moments of whether we win or we nail an awesome shot or take down a very tough team, just that excitement still is there, and it's fun to share with Lady and, once again, whoever else is playing. It's a very well put together shooter, and is one of those things that it's very accessible. What is the phrase? Easy to something, hard to master. I don't remember, but essentially that. And yeah, just something very, very fun to play with and jump in quickly here and there. But, well, everybody, that's been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. Short, sweet, to the point. Hope you guys enjoyed our topics today, talking Fallout, talking some games. Let me know what you think of Fallout down below. Let me know what kind of games really got your attention and took your time away in the best way possible. I'd love to hear it. But guys, this has been another episode of the Wait, Where We Talk About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011. You can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You could drop a follow over there. You can join in on the fun and conversation like Papa Griff did with us today. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, wherever you're watching or listening to the show, if you drop a follow or sub, wherever it may be, it may seem small, but does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today, giving this a watch, giving it a listen. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.